Hi guys, Daz here. So today I'm just going to be doing a comparison review between ADT's shock sensor, which is what I'm holding here right now, and the other one is the ADT's vibration sensor, which is what I'm holding here. So right off the bat, as you can see, the big difference between these two sensors are with the shock sensor on the right here is that it's only one sensor, while my vibration sensor here on the left has two things. This one, the bigger one, is called the universal transmitter, and the one on the top is the vibration sensor itself. So the vibration sensor is powered by the universal transmitter right here. So here with the universal transmitter, the battery is inside, which is using a CR32 battery, 23 battery, and there will be a temper button here. So in case if a burglar sees this and he tries to tamper with the sensors, this button will trigger the alarm. But as you see from the shock sensor, there is no there is no tempered button on it at all. So if a burglar carefully takes it out, it can trigger, but there's still a chance for it not to trigger. So vibration sensor wins in terms of the temper system. So okay, as the name suggests, the shock sensor is more sensitive to shock, whilst the vibration will be sensitive to vibration as well as shock. So it's 2 in 1. So this vibration sensor, will be triggered by any vibration that you put that is felt in where you put the sensor. So usually we put this sensor on a security bar grill and certain types of windows. Not all kinds of windows are suitable with this, but some are. Today I'm just going to be testing it and comparing both sensors on a very solid security grill. So obviously, as you may know, I am from Malaysia. Malaysia is a country where security grills are the norm. So we're just going to be using it, and my grill in my house is actually quite old, which is from the 80s. So grills from the 80s tends to be much more solid and less vibrating. If you hit it, the vibration will not be that much as compared to newer types of grill. So let's just test with the vibration sensor as well as the shock sensor. Okay, another thing about the shock sensor is it will not be triggered if you or anyone else punches the grill. So a heavy punch, no matter how hard is it, will not be sufficient enough to trigger. So if you hit it with a very solid wood, the impact still might not trigger the shock sensor. But with a vibration sensor, there will be no issue. A vibration sensor will be triggered if you punch it, or if you move the grill, touch the grills, or if people decide to saw the grills. So let's just do a testing later, just for your idea. Shock sensor, I don't think will be triggered if a person decides to saw the grill, unless he saw it very hard, unless he hits the grill with the saw. So okay, let's just do a comparison. So today I'm just going to be testing the shock sensor first. So okay, so I'm just going to be testing this shock sensor on this security grill in the toilet here. So usually we put the shock sensor in the middle of the grill, where it can reach you can feel all the shock from this grill. So I'm going to be doing testing. I'm going to arm the alarm now. So okay, so once it's armed, I'm just going to show you how it is. So okay, as I said just now, no matter how hard I hit it with my fist, punch it or kick it, it will not trigger. Maybe a kick might, because a kick is most of the time harder than a punch, but with a hard punch it will not trigger most of the time. So let me just show you here. It's already armed. Okay, So I've already slapped, I've hit. Okay, I've hit it with my ring here. So it triggered because of the ring. So okay, just now it triggered because when I punched, I hit my ring. So it will trigger if a metal makes impact on it, on this grill. So okay, let's try it again, but this time I'm going to use a wrench. A small wrench, but still a wrench nonetheless. So okay, let's just hit. Okay, it triggers. So let's just do the punching test again. This time just with my right, and then I'm gonna do it with my left with the ring hitting the grill. So okay, I'm just gonna be hitting it now. So okay, it does not trigger. First, I'm gonna hit it here. Okay, then I'm gonna hit my ring on it. Hold on it. Here, look, it triggers. So as long as a metal hits the ring, then it, the ring hits the metal part that is connected to the shock sensor, then it will trigger. So okay, let's do a sawing test. As I said just now, I don't think there is a high chance. There's a chance for it to trigger, but the chances are quite low because it needs a hard impact. Unless I hit it like this, of course it will trigger. But okay, I'll just try with the sawing test. Okay, so feels here. I'm gonna saw here. Yeah, I do feel the vibration in my fingers, but it's not a high enough shock for the shock sensor to feel, to trigger the shock sensor. Okay, but if I just hit it, it will trigger. So let me just try with a bigger saw. Will it trigger or not? Okay, even with a bigger saw, it does not trigger. So when I hit it, then it will trigger. So okay, that's the shock sensor. So okay, let me just try and put on the vibration sensor and let's see the difference there. So okay, this is the vibration sensor. So when you put the vibration sensor, this is the universal transmitter. It has a tempered button, so when I do put it on, then the tempered button will be pressed, and if anybody tries to tamper with the sensors, then it will trigger the alarm. Okay, so it's like that. Then you cannot put the vibration sensor like this, it will not trigger, so you have to put it like this. So I think I'll put it here because that's a very neutral place. Okay, properly put on. Okay, so let's just do testing with the sensors. So let me arm the sensor. Okay, this is a very solid grill, so even if I punch it, the vibration is not going to be that much, but let's just see. Okay, it still triggers. As you see, there's the difference between this and a shock sensor. Let me just do light touches on the grill. Will it trigger? Okay, even a light slap like that, trigger. Okay, then let's, obviously I think when you hit it, it's obviously gonna trigger, but let's just try it still. So I'm gonna hit here or here. So obviously this is there. Okay, it triggers as well. Okay, now let's do a sawing test. Okay, gradually I'm gonna slow and then heavy. Triggers. So I'm gonna try it on this side. If it vibrates in this side will vibrate even more. No doubts about that. Okay, let's try with a bigger saw. I think the bigger saw will definitely trigger the alarm. Yep, just a little bit, just a first saw, it already triggers. So let's try it from here. Yep, even with that it triggers. So okay, just now I did a punch and a slap on this part of the grill, so let's do it here. Okay, it triggers. Let's do a slap. So even a slap does trigger this vibration sensor. So if you ask me, if it's a big grill or a very solid grill because it's old school, if it's solid like this, you see if I hit it very hard here and my hand is here, the vibration is not that much, I can't really feel it, but this thing will feel it, it will trigger. But if you put a shock sensor, I doubt it can. A shock sensor will be good enough for a small grill, let's say a half size like this, or the newer type of grills. The newer grills are quite hollow, so when you hit it, it vibrates very easily. But if it's an old kind of grill like this, where it's very solid, not hollow at all, I don't recommend the shock sensor at all. So okay, let's just get back. So this is the difference between the shock sensor here and the vibration sensor here. The vibration sensor is going to be much more expensive than the shock sensor, but by not that much. In Malaysia itself, this vibration sensor is 150 ringgit, while this shock sensor is 100 ringgit. So if you add on just an extra 50 ringgit, you will get this, where the sensitive is much more better. So actually, usually if you ask me, where is a good place to put this shock sensor? Well, usually I put this shock sensor in houses where the grills are outside of the windows or doors, and because you do not want to have any false alarms, because it needs a very hard impact and hard shock to trigger. So usually if a cat touches the door, or if a lightning strikes, when a lightning happens and then the door or grills vibrate, it's still not sufficient enough to trigger the alarm. But in that case, if you put this outside of the house, where the grills is outside of the house, and then a cat is touching the grill, or if the thunder happen, lightning makes a vibration, then it will trigger the alarm. So there's very good uses for both, for each. Let's just say if a customer would prefer a shock sensor than the vibration sensor, then you have to let the customer know that it will only trigger via hard impact. Also, any kinds of metal impact it will trigger as well. As you see just now, just a punch with this ring that I punched the grill with, it will trigger. But if I punch harder with this finger that has no ring, no matter how hard the punch is, it will not trigger the alarm. So you can, safe to say, just tell the customer it needs to have impact from any kinds of metal, then only it will trigger. But the shock sensor does not trigger if there is any sawing done on the security grill, but the vibration does have does trigger the alarm when people are doing when people are sawing the grill. So just now I used a small and a big saw, both triggered this alarm. So in Malaysia itself, there's a combination of a shock and a vibration. Let's just say you are a person that has a lot of cats at the house, and you are worried that if your cat touches the grills, that it might do a false alarm triggers. Then I suggest you use the shock sensor. But if you don't mind that, you want really peace of mind, but you don't mind the false alarms, you can change the sensitivity of the vibration sensor, but it will still be sensitive to any kinds of vibration or shock. So if you don't mind that, then use the vibration sensor. But let's just say if the grills are very solid, like the one I just tested on just now, then the vibration sensor is the best way to go. Just now, even with a solid grill, this shock sensor does work, but it needs to be a very hard impact, a metal impact. So if you don't mind, if you think that you're only worried that someone is going to be hitting your security grills, then a shock sensor is enough. But it depends. If it's a big grill, you may need two of these things. So yeah, that's just my short comparison review. So just leave a comment down in the comment below if you have experience using these things, or if you want to know more about it, and give us an idea what else to do in my next video. I just might test the motion sensor from ADT. It's a very good sensor. I very much recommend ADT. I very much recommend this vibration sensor and shock sensor as well. It just depends on your needs. Would you prefer a vibration sensor or a shock sensor? Just call ADT and the safety advisors will advise you. By the end of the day, it's still your choice. So thanks for tuning in.